So much lint. Growing up a Marvel kid, dramatic lighting, X-Men and nudie magazines. My name is Eric Canete. You're watching Redraw, and today I'm drawing Beta Ray Bill. I grew up a Marvel kid, and it's not to say I didn't know of DC Comics back in the day, but given the choice, I'd always gravitate to Marvel Comics titles, and it probably has something to do with the fact that when I first moved to the United States, in the local comic book store that I could ride my bike to, there was this poster on the comic book store window that showed Thor getting turned into a frog, so that was pretty mind-blowing to me. I didn't know who that was, but when I went inside and asked about it, the comic book store owner, this had to have been X amount of years out from that issue actually getting published, but he told me what it was all about, and I was pretty much hooked from there on down. Getting into comic books back then took a bit of a learning curve. I didn't know there were issue numbers, and I didn't know that one issue came out after another, a month in and month out, so I would just pick up issues that I could afford, and as a kid I didn't have a ton of money, so whatever it was that was going into those discounted bins, that was my thing. And I think that's how I found Beta Ray Bill. Between Thor getting turned into a frog and some other dude who looked like a horse carrying a hammer that kind of looked like Thor, I was like, man, comic books are wild. What's this about? I gave myself an easy assignment with this image because, and I'm using air quotes when I say easy, by putting such a harsh, dramatic lighting, the light source coming from Stormbreaker, the little hammer that Beta Ray Bill is holding. Once I established that that was the primary source of light, I could be really creative, and I talked about this in my previous video. I could be really creative in regards to where to take some creative liberties. So that meant that I could choose where the highlights would go. That would help you understand form and volume. But also I could choose where I can drop things in the shadow so I wouldn't have to get caught up in rendering it. I cheated, man. That's what I'm trying to say. I started this image by laying down a slight shadow value first, and that shadow value was this sort of effect that was the light emanating from the hammer, and I think it went a long way in the final image of really landing the intense light that was coming from that hammer. And I'll start rendering the highlights and the light value a little bit more later, but if you were paying attention in the beginning, that's the reason why you see a lot of those brush strokes going towards the hammer. With an image like this, I can accidentally just highlight everything as if it was all the same material. It took a lot of deliberate effort to pay attention to how much light would bounce off of metal and how much light would be absorbed by his skin, so that not everything goes into that super harsh contrast of white, then gray, then black. So it's in the subtleties that you'll start picking up what sort of material it is based on how much light it is absorbing and how much light it is reflecting. And that's a pretty good challenge for me. Before I forget, if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, and if you would, please like and comment on this video. That really helps me out. Thanks. That comic book store that had the Thor frog poster in its window wasn't exclusively a comic book store. It was a used bookstore that my stepdad would take me into as he would turn in the books that he had just finished and exchange them for a new set of used books. I don't even know if that bookstore is around anymore. Anyway, imagine the shape of the interior of the store as a U. One side on the left was the comic books, on the other side would be the used books, but at the bottom part of that U was a bunch of used nudie magazines. Thinking about it now, it's kind of gross, but if you imagine that the comic books are arranged alphabetically, A through X, that's what got me into the X-Men, or at least picking up my very first X-Men comic book, because it was closest to all the pornos. I'm such a perv, man. I spoke about this in my earlier videos, and by the way, if you haven't had a chance to check those out yet, please go back to the front page of my channel and check out the Bo-Katan or the Wonder Woman 1984 image in which I talk about stacking information. The exercise here is to drop his thighs into shadow, which then pops his forearms forward because they are closest to a light source, creating a pretty nice contrast, and that helps to inform on the depth. I wanted to take an opportunity to thank everybody who's shown support and subscribed to my channel. I know it's only 2 episodes or 2 videos in, truth be told. Producing YouTube content like these videos while I'm working on my creator-owned comic book at the same time has been a lot of time and energy investment, but it has been so much fun, so thank you to all of you. Final touches on the images to really land the energy effects and, more importantly, the light source. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.